Well, hello, everybody. We're glad to welcome you to the first of three webinars that the Digital Teaching and Learning team is sponsoring. My name's Jared Covilli, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the administrator over Digital Teaching and Learning. And over the next 3 weeks, we're going to have three different presentations. Each week, we'll be talking about one of the tools that we kind of emphasize in our district. So this year, we've been doing a pilot with Screencastify Pro. And so we're going to hear from Olivia Nelson in just a few moments about some of the great features that are available in Screencastify and how you can use this as part of your instruction, and also just good tips on how you can use video more effectively in your instruction. So we'll be hearing that today. Next week, we will be learning more about Canva and how you can use that in your classroom. And I know that was a big hit for a lot of you last week at USET. So you'll be learning some tips and tricks about that. And then the third of the 3 weeks, there was a little typo on our flyer. I apologize. It said that it was going to be on a Monday. All of these are on Tuesday. So the third will be the latest features in Nearpod. There's some new things that maybe you haven't seen in Nearpod. So we're excited to bring one of the representatives from Nearpod to show you some of that as well. All of these sessions will be recorded so that you can watch them again later. For the coaches who are in the audience, we'll be posting those to the DTL Canvas course. And then for everyone else, we'll be sharing those out through YouTube as we get those kind of uploaded, and we'll share those through your coaches so they can give you the address of where you can find these recordings. We promised you we'd only be half an hour with a little Q&A afterwards, so we want to get right to it. I'd like to welcome Olivia Nelson with us, who comes to us from Screencastify, and I'm going to turn the time over to her to share with you some great tips and tricks on how to use video and specifically Screencastify more effectively in your classroom.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jared. I am really excited to be with you guys today. Jared, do you mind enabling my screen share?
You bet. One sec. I'll get it there.
No problem.
There you go.
Sweet. All right, y'all, I'm going to share my screen and start with just a little quick question. You can use these Zoom reactions. I'm not totally wed to the Zoom reactions. So if you want to just tell me in words, my goal here is to just sort of assess how comfortable you currently are with Screencastify. So you could go ahead and use a Zoom reaction or just drop your answer in the chat box so we can see how you're feeling. Thanks. I see some of those reactions coming up. You guys are much more skilled than I am. I don't know how to get my Zoom reactions to do what I want them to do. Beautiful. Cool. So if you haven't answered, you can go ahead and continue on, but I'm going to go ahead and move us forward. So we're going to talk today about creating effective instructional videos. Hopefully you're in the right spot. I tend to think whether you're in the right spot or the wrong spot, we're going to have a good time today. So like Jared said, I'm Olivia Nelson. I do professional development at Screencastify. Before that, I taught many grades, many subjects. Third grade math is where my heart is. So that's the one I always put on this slide. And then I did curriculum and development for a number of years after that. So I'm really excited to continue to support educators in making sure you have everything you need to use video in the classroom. Bonnie, did you have a question before we get started, or was that your Screencastify reaction emoji?
That was an accidental hand raise.
No problem. I'm very guilty of keeping my hand up after I've already asked my question, so I totally understand. So we'll start by talking about creating videos. What does that look like? I'll create one in front of you. Then I'll talk to you guys about what it means to use video in the classroom. I don't want you to leave today thinking, wow, this is really cool, but I'm not sure how it applies to me. So I hope to answer that question in the middle portion here. And then we'll finish with about 5 minutes of question and answer. So here we go. I'm going to skip over some of these questions just because we only have a really finite amount of time to work together today. So it's not because I don't care about your opinions, but I want to make sure that you guys get everything you need to be successful. So it seems like most of you are at least sort of familiar with Screencastify, so I'm not going to do too much here, but like you know, we are a Google Chrome extension that allows you to record your screen, your webcam, or some combination of both. You don't have to be a skilled sort of video creator or editor. You can make a video in just 3 clicks. You can customize what's in that video, and then you can really easily share that video out with an audience, be it students, families, other staff members, etc. So I am going to ask you your thoughts about this video in just a second. This is a video that a colleague of mine created with Screencastify. So what she did is she pulled up an infographic and she recorded that infographic on her screen and then embedded her webcam, which allowed her to appear on the screen as well. When I play this, I would love to know what you think is really done really well here and what could have been done better so that we can make our own with some improvements.
Hi. Today, we're learning about the Bill of Rights. You might remember that the Bill of Rights has 10 different amendments that give folks in the United States certain rights that they should expect from the government. So the first amendment to the Bill of Rights is actually freedom of expression. And you probably heard about that one because it includes our freedom of speech, it includes our freedom of religion, it includes the freedom of the press. There are 5 different freedoms that you can see here. So we also have the freedom of assembly, so we can protest together, and then the freedom of petition, so we can formally create some sort of grievances against the government and petition them to make changes. We also have the Second Amendment, which is around the right to bear arms. And generally, there is a little bit of a discussion about what that actually means. But theoretically, it means that individuals have the right to have some sort of firearms, maybe. But we'll talk about some of the controversy around that as we continue. We also have the Third Amendment, which is basically saying that the government can't show up to your house, knock on the door, and say that you have to have somebody from the Army, the Navy, or any armed forces stay with you, and you have to provide them food and shelter, which is similar to what the British did when we were a colony of theirs.
All right, y'all. So don't be shy. Things that you liked about this video, but also things that could have been better. You can drop your answers in the chat box. We're going to make our own. So definitely be honest so that ours can be better. Yeah, the font's really small. Super hard to read. Okay. I'll give a couple more seconds in case folks have other thoughts. Oh, there they go. Too much info. We could zoom in. Oh, someone's an expert already. Not much room for interaction. Okay, you guys are psychic. This is great. Love this. Perfect. All right. So what is going to make a video effective? We're not in the business of creating videos just to create them. We want them to be effective, right? As teachers, as educators, time is not something we have a plethora or an abundance of. And so we certainly want to make sure that anything we're doing is effective. So this study that I've cited here actually lists 4 different things that will make a video effective. But today we're just going to focus on these first 2, which are signaling and segmenting. So signaling is going to be showing what's most important. So a lot of you have said highlight, zoom in. Those are some of the things that we'll do to signal what is most important at any given time in a video. And then segmenting is more about how we'll break up the information and talk about one thing at a time. And whoever's the super psychic in the chat box that said something about interactivity, segmenting is sort of where we'll get the interactive piece from. All right, so let's do it together. Do me a favor, drop a yes in the chat box if you can see my infographic and my extension. Beautiful. Awesome. Great. We've reached quorum. Everyone makes fun of me for still using that word quorum. I'm sorry. It's the only word that I know that means that. So first thing we're going to decide is what we are recording. Are we recording just this browser tab, the desktop, which will allow us to switch between tabs or show something else on the computer, or webcam, which is just us talking to the camera? In this case, I'm going to stick to browser tab because, okay, perfect. Thank you, Jared. He said quorum's still popular in Utah. Thanks. So in this case, we'll stick to browser tab, right? It's this infographic. It's in this one tab. I'm not showing anything else, so that'll work perfectly. I'm going to enable my microphone because I'm going to be talking and I want to make sure my students can hear. I'm going to embed the webcam because I liked that we could see my colleague on the screen there. I want to keep that consistent here. And then I'll click show more options and I'll keep this countdown. I just need a couple seconds to get ready. And then these drawing tools are going to be some of the ways that we can sort of signal on the screen while we're recording, right? I'm not going to enable tab audio, but I will tell you what it is. Tab audio will capture the sound coming from your computer. So if you had a song about the Bill of Rights or a video of someone making a speech about a specific amendment, right? You would want to capture that sound and enable this tab audio. In this case, all we're using is a visual. It doesn't have any audio component, so we can keep that turned off. All right, y'all, I gotta warn you that you're gonna see two of me here, so my apologies, but the second embedded webcam me will be gone as soon as we're done recording. All right, so I will make my confession, get out in front of this. I am a chronic pauser. You may have noticed the very first thing I did was click pause on the drawing toolbar. That pause button is also available up here in the extension. It just means you don't have to be perfect the first time, right? I've paused my recording. I can resume it whenever I'm ready. I'm going to talk you through some of the tools, and then I will go ahead and record in front of you. So the drawing toolbar, we can actually collapse and expand and move it all around on the screen. Same thing with our webcam, right? We're not tethered to that corner. We can move it, we can expand, we can use it to point at things if we want, right? And collapse. We can change the direction. So if you don't like that mirrored thing, you can change it. And then you can also change the input here. So if you have a document camera or some kind of external webcam that you want to use, you can always switch to that here, okay? In terms of drawing tools, the mouse can show up as a click mouse. So notice every time I click, there's a red circle. This is really great for if you're walking students or anyone through doing something so they can see exactly what you're clicking on. I'm not going to be clicking on anything here. So the focus mouse, which will serve as a spotlight, will be really helpful for me instead. We also have a pen tool, which we can circle, underline, point to things. We can use this rectangle to highlight things on screen. And then these stickers are a really great way to show excitement or give feedback. Someone, I think, is off mute, so just check your microphone.
Around and checked on them and made sure everybody was up and going.
I don't have the capacity to mute any. I muted me too. All right, thanks. So I am going to go ahead and click play here and actually record a video in front of you guys so you can see what this looks like. I will say that a lot of what I'm going to do now requires a little bit of planning and knowing ahead of time what you want to highlight on screen. After we record, I'll show you in the editor how you don't have to be totally planned and you can still signal on screen after you've made a recording. Okay, here we go. All right, class, super excited to keep talking to you about some of the cool things that we have learned about when it comes to the Bill of Rights. Today, we're going to review just these first two amendments here. So let's start with the First Amendment. So the First Amendment is freedom of expression, and that actually comes with 5 freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition. All that in just that one amendment. Then there's the Second Amendment. I'll make a green rectangle around that one. Do you remember what the Second Amendment is? Oh yeah, it's the right to bear arms. That one's a little more controversial, but it essentially means that United States citizens have the right to own weapons to protect themselves. When you're done recording, you'll click stop, and it'll open in a new tab and save automatically to your Google Drive. The one thing I'll say here is that this is saving automatically to my Google Drive, so I don't have to worry about saving. But if you notice up here, this title is long and insane, and I will never remember it. So I can just jump in here and change that so that now it's more easily searchable on my Google Drive. Any questions about what I did while I was recording? You can drop them in the chat and I'll try to answer them in real time. Cool. So here are some of the things that we did while we can do while we're recording to sort of signal on screen. But I also want to talk to you about some of the ways that we can make some changes after we've recorded, right? Sometimes we don't know what we want to highlight. We don't do it perfectly the first time. And so I want to show you some of that as well. So this is the video management page. Again, this is where my video automatically opened up. And I'm just going to click open in editor here, and that will take me to the Screencastify edit portion of the product where I can make some changes. So first thing I want to do, I don't know if you guys noticed, but it doesn't actually say freedom of expression on this infographic anywhere. So I want to add that text so that those students, I said it out loud, but so that those students who need to see things written can have that sort of modality as well. So I'll click right here and I'll tell you guys very frankly that I've made this same video 800 million times. So I happen to know exactly where I want to put the text. You may have to listen to the video or press play and hear it. But again, I just have made this video so many times that I know exactly where I'm putting it. So I'm going to click text and I'm going to type freedom of expression. And I actually have the opportunity on the right side here to do some formatting. So I'm going to highlight this and I want it a little bit bigger. And then I can't really see it. So I'm going to give it a background color and a border. And I'm going to move it because right now it's kind of blocking stuff up. And then this white dot will allow me to like even turn it a little so it's a little more dynamic. And then I can click done. Now, everything in the editor that you do is going to have this sort of, I call it squeeze and stretch user experience, right? So you'll have these down here, you get this orange speech bubble that represents the text, and it has handles on either side. And you can use your mouse to grab the handle and either squeeze it, which means that the text will just flash up and disappear, or stretch it. So you can make that text stay on longer, right? Someone in the chat box, I told you guys I had a group full of psychics here, said something about zooming. So I tried with my pen tool to highlight those 5 different freedoms, but I think we could make it even better by zooming in on them, right? So I'll click this zoom button and it gives me this green square that I can resize, and everything in the square is what it's actually a rectangle, Olivia, you taught math, is what I'll be zooming in on, right? So I'll click done. Again, same handles and same sort of squeeze and stretch. So I'm going to stretch this out so that we stay zoomed in the whole time I'm talking about that. Okay. Then the last thing I'll say here is about this sort of interactive element, right? So what I tried to do in terms of interactivity is ask my students a question, right? Obviously, I can't hear their answers, but I'm looking for that sort of like Dora the Explorer, Blue's Clues vibe where they're yelling the answer at the screen. It's kind of, I asked them if they remembered the Second Amendment, but it says it on screen. And so to make the experience a little more authentic, I'm actually going to blur out those words until I'm ready for students to see them. So I'll click blur. And again, I get this rectangle and I'm going to resize it so that I'm right over top of the words there. And on the right side, I can actually increase the intensity of that blur so that like students really can't see what's there. And then I can click done. Right. And again, same deal with the handles and the squeeze and the stretch. So I'm going to stretch it out. I don't want them to see it at all in the beginning of the video. Notice when I slide my cursor along the video, it's pretty good about being in real time what's happening. So again, because I use Screencastify every day and I'm really experienced, I gave myself a visual cue on screen when I was thinking. And then when I revealed it, I gave myself another visual cue with this super over exaggerated O, right? So I'm going to stretch this out. And there it is. That's where I say oh, and I'm going to stop. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and play this through so you guys can see what it looks like. Amendment. So the First Amendment is freedom of expression. And that actually comes with 5 freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition. All that in just that one amendment. Then there's the Second Amendment. I'll make a green rectangle around that one. Do you remember what the Second Amendment is? Oh yeah, it's the right to bear arms. That one's a right. And so to your point about the video being interactive, now there's sort of an element that allows my students to think about something and to sort of see whether their answer was right. Any questions about that before I jump over to segmenting and show you one of my other favorite ways to add some interactive elements to your videos? Cool. All right. So what I'm going to do here is actually one of my favorite things to do is give students an actual task to complete during a video, right? We know students love videos. All they do at home is watch videos, but sometimes they're not actively engaged. So I'm going to click cut here. And now I have 2 separate chunks of video. And on the right side, I'll choose add media and click title card. And what this will do is bring up a blank black screen. I can actually change the color of that if I want by clicking there and adjusting the color. And I can change this text. So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to say, oops, if I can spell. Right? Draw a picture that represents the First Amendment. You could have given students a worksheet and say, complete question 1. You could have given them a graphic organizer and tell them to stop here and fill it out, right? There's any number of tasks that you could give students, but the main thing is that now you've given students a thinking or work job to complete during their viewing of the video. Each of these longer lines down here is 5 seconds. I will be very honest with you and tell you I am a guesstimator. I'm going to stretch it out. That looks about right. And then stretch out the text as well. You could certainly count by 5s if you wanted that to be a specific amount of time, right? Now that I'm done and I've given my students this work time, I can go ahead and click export and bring it back to Screencastify, where I will make a couple more changes that I'm excited to show you guys about. Any questions about that built-in work time? Okay, cool. All right, so tell me more. We've made an awesome video, right? We had in mind some things we wanted to do while we were recording, then we made some changes afterward through the editor, and now we want to share that video out with our audience. Well, when we come back over here to, again, video management page, the hub for everything you're wanting to do, we can go ahead and share using a ton of options up here at the top. And then if you scroll down, there are even more options for how to share. But I'm going to talk to you right now about some of my favorite features. Historically, I've used a ton of video in instruction, right? The difficulty, and I'll be honest here, has been that when I share my video, it's like, cross my fingers, hope they watch it, hope they get it, right? So I'm going to talk you through the ways that we can use Screencastify to tell, 1, did they watch it? And 2, did they get it? Now we have some actual accountability measures for both of those things. So when I click show share settings here, notice it's set to private. As soon as I choose a way to share, that will change automatically. But I can jump in and make some custom changes myself. I could change it back to private. I could make it anyone in the organization and add any domains that I want. I'm going to share it with you guys and ask you to do me a favor. So I'll choose anyone with the link. Then I need to determine how I'm tracking these views, either by email address, so folks will log in with a Google account, or by nickname, which will allow me to share with a little bit of a broader audience because people can view even if they don't have a Google account. Okay. I'm going to paste this link in the chat box. And I'm going to ask you to click on it. You don't have to watch the video. My point here is just to show you how you will show up as a viewer. And I'll do it on my screen as well, just so you can see. So you'll enter a nickname. I'll be honest and say you'll probably want to norm around what nicknames look like. People will enter Boogeyman if given the opportunity. Then you'll click continue. And now you can watch the video, okay? As a creator, what will happen is, right now this viewer count says 0. If I refresh my page, I'll know who helped me out. Wow, you guys are good. 7 people, right? So Jojo Mama, you see, this is what they will do. And I'm not upset at all because that is exactly what will happen. So a couple things I'll point out here. The first thing is this most recent view column, super duper helpful if you're sharing a video that students will need to view more than once. So for example, I've created videos about how to write a paragraph. Students are certainly writing more than 1 paragraph in a year. And so I'm asking students to revisit that video anytime they're writing a paragraph, right? And now I can see, did they actually do that? Okay. The other thing I'll point out here, just total transparency, is that these views will show up whether someone watches 1 second or the whole video. So I don't think that Wilkes watched the entire video twice. They just clicked on the link twice. So how can we assess actual engagement and or mastery of the content? Since this view number will just give us information about, like, very basic, did they click the link? So we can do that with interactive questions. So I'll click on that. Again, I will just show you really quickly how I got here in case you missed it. Video management page, everything you want to do is right here. Oh, I have 4 more friends, thank you. Interactive questions will bring me to this. The student experience with interactive questions is that the video will actually pause and the question will pop up. So you want to be thoughtful about where you're inserting the question. So I'm going to go ahead and add my question right here. I asked this question out loud, but now I can actually have some accountability measure for if my students answered it, right? Before I was just counting on them to yell at the screen, but now I'm like, oh no, I can actually assess. And you'll choose the correct answer, right? You can put as few as 2 answer choices up to 4. Right now, multiple choice is the only question type that we offer, and you'll click save. Down at the bottom, the question will populate. On the right side, you'll be able to see it as well, and you can make changes or delete the question entirely. When you've added all the questions you want, so I'm just going to add this one, but you could certainly add 8 if you wanted. You'll click share and use one of these options, or if you use any of these options up here, it will include these the viewer count and the questions, right? So QR code, any of these options up at the top will still give you that data. The last thing I'll say here is that that link that I shared in the chat box is actually a live link. So although there was no question in the video the first time you clicked on it, if you click on that link again, you will see the question. So this is really wonderful because you're not having to reshare links if you choose to add a question after you create. I will type Olivia Q for question this time. And I can move freely throughout, but what I can't do is get past the question, right? So as a student, I have to click on it and I have to answer it, and then I can watch the rest of the video. As a video creator, that data will populate. I knew you guys were going to do this. Awesome. In real time in this responses tab, right? So all of a sudden you have really wonderful data at your fingertips, aggregate level data, individual student level data, and question data. And I just want to point out that this is actually all sort of clickable also. So I can say, I wonder, Olivia's score is a little lower than usual. I wonder what's going on. I can click on her name and see all of her answers. And I can say, you know what, question 1, I would have expected her to get this one right. I wonder why she got it wrong. And I can click on that and see, right, all of the answers that everyone has given to that question and say, wow, actually no one in the class understood this. I need to reteach it entirely. Okay. Any questions about the interactive questions? A little redundant questions about the questions. Okay.
And you said there was no limit to the number of questions?
Nope. Nope, there's no limit currently to the number of questions. So for example, if you want to place like one in the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end to sort of strategically require students to view, right? Because they can't get past the questions. That's one way I've seen folks use it, or like put a question every 10 seconds, whatever the case is. But there are definitely really awesome ways to use it. There's no time limit for a screencast if you're on the unlimited version. If you are on a free version of Screencastify, it is 5 minutes, but you guys should be good to go. All right. So great question, Kathy. So Kathy asked, if you download the video, will the questions download? No. So any of the options at the bottom of the screen with the original video file on your video management page will not include the questions or the viewers, right? So if I go back to my video management page for a hot second, any of these ways at the bottom don't include the questions. Really good question. I think I've said the word question 7,000 times. All right, y'all, I'm going to really quickly just breeze through this. What I'll do is share my slides with you so that you can go back and view the videos that are on the next slides, because I'm not going to play them. But I promised you that I would tell you how this applies to you, so I will really quickly. You can record directions. I've seen this used really wonderfully for small group activities, at-home activities. I taught 3rd grade math. For the most part, it's really different than how it was when parents learned it. So it's helpful for them. to be able to see directions for activities. Here I'll say, if you use the QR code to share these, I've seen teachers do some really cool things where they've physically created directions for different activities that are taking place in different locations and used a QR code so that students don't have to talk to the teacher. They can just walk up, use their Chromebook, tablet, whatever, to scan that code and see what the directions for that activity are, right? Sharing great instructional videos. We made one together. This one is an example of a thesis statement. So this is one of those ones like I was talking about where you might view it more than once, right? Students are certainly writing more than one thesis in a year. You would be able to see, did they actually view it last night when they were working on their thesis? Don't want to play this. Getting ready to use awesome tools. So this is where that click mouse might come into play. If you're showing students how to use a new website, how to use a new tool, you can record your screen and make sure that they can see exactly what you're doing. And then making feedback verbal is one of my favorite. It just allows you to make sure that students don't think that feedback is punitive and understand instead that feedback is a way that we as teachers and educators support students in reaching the standard that we know that they can, right? If they can see your face and hear your voice, all of a sudden it takes out that punitive element of just like a highlighted piece of text and a comment from the teacher. And then the last one is students creating their own videos and explaining to you their thinking. I wanted to focus today on teacher created videos, but I've certainly seen some great examples of students using video as well. All right, y'all, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm 2 minutes over, but I think I did pretty okay with time, Jared.
Oh, you're great. Yeah, you're doing great.
What I will do is I have a survey for y'all, which I will drop in the chat in a second as I'm answering questions. And Jared, I will share with you this slide deck so that you can share it out with everyone that's here.
You bet.
But there are a bunch of resources on the last slide of the slide deck, and also my email is there. So if you guys have questions that didn't come up today, but come up, tomorrow, next week, 3 months from now, you can always send me an email. I'd be more than happy to answer. This is a survey for you guys. It's twofold. So one, it's about the product. If there are things that you're super excited about or things that you're like, man, I wish Screencastify could do X, definitely note it in the survey. I'm an educator by trade, not a software engineer. So I don't have any idea how easy or hard anything is to sort of program. But a lot of times our software engineers look at this feedback and they're like, oh, that's easy to do. And they can immediately make Screencastify better. And then the other piece of feedback is obviously about the presentation, things you liked, things you would have wanted to see more of. I am in the business of constant improvement, again, as a former educator. And so I would love your feedback.
Hey,
So
Olivia. Hey, do we, time limits? We have the paid version or the, paid version, premium version. So how long can we go?
Forever,
20 minutes?
never and ever.
Forever. Okay.
I shouldn't
But
say
normally-
forever, because maybe infinite is not true, but yeah.
What's typical of a good presentation limit?
So I think it depends. And I think that you can sort of fudge that by creating some of that interactivity, right? So I think people usually say that kids' attention spans are about the same as their age. So like an 8-year-old can pay attention for 8 minutes. That's an adage. I don't know that it's scientifically true, right? But I think that you could create a 20-minute video. And if you've broken it up with some of those multiple choice questions and some of that sort of like built-in work time, like I gave students, then you can get away with a much longer video. So I would say it depends on the level of interactivity. If students are just straight watching a video, I would keep it about to their age, if that makes sense. If you embed videos in Canvas, will the questions be there? I think that embedding is, give me 1 second to make sure I don't tell you the wrong thing. Yeah, so the embed, if you're using the embed code, that's one of the bottom ways of sharing. And so it will not include questions. So let me share my screen so that I'm not talking sort of in the abstract here. So this down here, anything with original video file won't include questions. So that includes if you're embedding this in Canvas. it will not include questions. If instead you copy this link and paste it in Canvas, it will include the questions. Someone asked similarly about Google Classroom. So these top ways at the top do include the questions. So if you share straight to Google Classroom, that will include questions and viewer analytics. So that's sort of the way that I separate it in my brain, is that anything at the top is going to include those things and anything at the bottom is not.
That's a great point, Olivia. One thing that I was going to just share is I know sometimes we don't want to use links because we're taking people out of Canvas and some of those different things, or even just having a text link. Sometimes just taking a screenshot of the video and linking that in Canvas kind of gives that feel like they're still watching the video, but then they get that interactivity that Olivia is talking about. I think that's a nice little tip to try.
Totally.
Do you know, I had one other question just while we're pausing for a sec. Like you kind of shared, a lot of our teachers, I think, sometimes think of Screencastify as being something for students who aren't in class, either they're sick or we're doing digital learning.
Yeah.
A good tip of like why you should use this while students are in front of you, like how you could make videos for the kids that are present.
For sure. So my answer to this question is essentially that this is technology that is probably 300 years ahead of time. And the reason I say that is because you can essentially clone yourself, right? I don't know when we'll actually be able to clone people, but with video, that's essentially what you can now do, right? I can teach 2 small groups at a time, which I could never do as just one person with video, right? I know that these students over here need some reteach about the First Amendment, or about how to write a paragraph, or about how to do 3-digit multiplication, or whatever the case is. And all of a sudden I can allow them to work sort of in a small group with me, quote unquote, right? But on video. And I would say also that the benefit there is that even when I'm working with students in small group, like in person with live actual me, some students may be hesitant to ask me to repeat myself. And so it's almost even better than the actual me, because now the student can rewind and rewatch as many times as they want without having to draw attention to the fact that they need more help. Right. And so for those students for whom that's a difficult thing to acknowledge, they don't have to acknowledge it, because they can watch it in sort of the privacy of their own small group without the pressure of their friends or their teacher knowing sort of how much help they may need. And then additionally, sort of what I said before about the QR code thing, if you ever come to another session I lead, I'm sorry, all I do is talk about QR codes, but I do really, really like the way that you can use that to physically give students a way to sort of like bridge that online and offline world. So you can create like a gallery walk with videos using QR codes, and they can all of a sudden move around and look at different ones. You could allow a lot of different things in terms of student choice. I recently had someone tell me that they do their test corrections through Screencastify. So they make a video for each question. And then that way students can independently decide like, oh, I got question 1 wrong. Let me view question 1 video. And they can do test corrections in a way that doesn't require the teacher to stand up in front of the class and go through every question with everyone, right? So those are just some of the ways that I've seen it used sort of in-person setting.
Thanks. Love it.
Definitely. Any other questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat. I think your answered the Google Classroom question as well.
Awesome. Oh, Gloria, I'm so happy that you found it helpful. I'll be honest and say that when Jared said I had 30, I'm from New York, I talk a lot. I'm okay at talking fast, but I talk a lot. And so when Jared said I had 30 minutes, I was a little nervous. So I'm glad you guys found it helpful.
Well, we appreciate you taking a quick 30 minutes and knowing how much you've shared with us before. I shared this with some of our own people, but our pilot on Screencastify has been going great. They've seen a lot of usage going up in our district, and it's been fun to see how a lot of us are starting to use this tool more effectively in our own videos that we're making for teachers, for some of you as coaches or as teacher specialists, and also for students. So Really appreciate all of you joining us today, and a special thanks to Olivia for that presentation. And again, if you have questions for Olivia, we'll share out her slides so that you can access her contact information, or feel free to reach out to the digital learning specialist that comes to your building. And we'd be happy to help you with any questions you have about Screencastify.
Awesome. Thanks so much, y'all. Again, I'll just say my email verbally now, but I'll send it out to Jared. It's olivia@screencastify.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. If you've ever seen me before, I say this all the time. I tell hundreds of people a week, no one ever emails me, so you will not be bothering me. But again, thanks so much for your time, y'all. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Yep. Thank you, Olivia. And for everybody, we'll be back next week, same time with the same link, and we will be talking about Canva next week. So we appreciate you coming back and sharing that with other friends in your building. So thanks to all of you for participating today.